What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a look at DioField Chronicles from Square Enix. And it is a pretty interesting title that people have been requesting me to take a look at, and there's actually a free demo available on Steam right now. I'll try to link the Steam page down below for you guys. But the game itself is actually releasing on September 22nd. This particular game is kind of an interesting blend between something akin to Final Fantasy as well as a more tactical-based game, as the game itself is essentially a tactical RPG, or an SRPG as they are often called sometimes in this particular context. Now, I would tell you this is the kind of game that you could tell me nothing about it and just show me the art and I would be like, Square Enix made this for sure, as it kind of has their handprints, if you will, all over the title, from the art style to the story. Now, in terms of story, relatively basic. Obviously, I don't have the full picture from the demo, but essentially, kingdoms in turmoil. There's a resource that's used to make magic, or modern magic as the game likes to call it. There's an empire that's been sweeping the land. There's a coalition of forces set against the empire. All pretty part and parcel for Square Enix. Now, interestingly enough, though, with this demo and something they mention on the Steam page is that progress from the demo will carry over to the full game. So if you just want to get a jump start, you can essentially play through the entire first chapter, and that progress can carry over into the fully released game, which is a pretty nice touch, especially for a demo, considering a lot of people don't do demos at all anymore. But the bulk of the game, of course, centers around the combat, and as I mentioned, this is essentially a tactical RPG. I will say this is where things get a little on the average side for me. I wouldn't say it's bad, as what I've encountered is mostly well done, with one notable exception, which we'll get to. However, the game itself tries to sell this battle system as something new, and they're calling it real-time tactical battles, but to me it just feels like Final Fantasy finally found real-time with pause, because that's basically all I've seen here from the combat. You'll have an isometric view, control a bunch of characters, typically 4 at a time, and you can pause the combat whenever, have them use abilities, which will of course affect combat a great deal, move out of the way of enemy abilities. There's a flanking mechanic where you'll do more damage if you attack an enemy from behind. But I would tell you, as someone who's played a lot of Pathfinder and D&D style games via real-time with pause, this is just real-time with pause, and it's relatively straightforward real-time with pause at that. Now, that's not to say it's bad. What's here is actually kind of fun, but there's a relatively small amount of abilities here at the beginning of the game. I would obviously expect stuff like this to expand farther on, and then as you kill more and more enemies, you can even use some summons. They have Bahamut available here in the demo, and I gotta tell you, the visuals for this game, very, very striking. I love the visual direction of this. Now, in between your sort of tactical missions, you can kind of run around this mansion of sorts, which acts as your hub. You can go here by equipment. Once you get farther into the story, you can rank up your character's abilities, give them more options, as well as just better options. And of course, your characters level up in typical JRPG fashion. So in many ways, to me, this feels like Final Fantasy meets TRPG, which isn't unheard of, but instead of doing turn-based, they did real-time with pause. Now, while pretty much every part of the game is serviceable, I wouldn't say anything out here is really blowing me away, but what they've shown is competent at what it does. Again, visual style, very cool. The battle system is pretty good, if a little basic for somebody who plays a lot of these style games, because like this channel's centered around this kind of thing, so I'm very used to this style of combat. But if you're new to this style of combat, I would say this might be a good place for you to jump in, actually. But one thing that really sticks out to me is that the writing is a little and it mostly stands out because of the quality of everything else. For starters, the first line of dialogue, or the first thing a character says, will have some voice acting behind it, but the voice acting doesn't line up exactly with what you're seeing, so they'll just kind of bark something generic, and then the text says something different, which is always a bit of a juxtaposition. But also, some of the writing is just weird, in the sense that, like, that's not how people talk. And, you know, I get that Square Enix kind of has this whole anime thing going on with a lot of its storytelling and stuff, but while I was actually listening to what these characters say, a lot of it is just actually not very good. In broad terms, outside of my personal quirk with the writing itself, overall I had fun with what I played of the demo. It seems like it's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you're into this style of game. I would tell you, while the marketing seems to think so, I don't think this game is going to be really doing anything particularly innovative in terms of the combat, at least from what I played in the demo. However, who knows, maybe the full release will shock me and there's mechanics way later that I just haven't seen. But at a glance, just from having played the demo, while I do think the game looks good and seems decent at what it doesn't really do anything new, and I feel like it's going to have a hard time justifying its $60 asking price as a result. But the game itself releases in September on the 22nd, so I'll probably give this one a proper review because my interest is piqued, especially since a lot of games in this particular genre actually have like $40 asking prices. So again, I think this one's just gonna have a hard time getting $60 out of people. That's my 2 cents on DioField Chronicle. You can, again, try it out yourself right now, but regardless of all that, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.